Start.
Okay. So, good evening, Mrs. Sarkar. Welcome to our group of schools, BD Memorial and BDMI. And thank you, very big thank you to Mr. S.L. Gupta, our CEO, and our managing trustee for giving us this encouragement to hold webinars and to hold these kind of programs for teachers, because it is only when the management is proactive that we can go ahead and do these kind of programs. So thank you, sir, once again. And I'm really honored and privileged that I have the privilege of knowing Mrs. Sarkar so well, and that she has agreed to come here and be with us and give our teachers the invaluable inputs, which I'm sure the teachers are really looking forward to. There are a lot of questions they have in mind, and there are a lot of things. We know we are all moving in great unprecedented times. So for us to be able to adjust and to know more and more is something which we are all trying to learn, and we are all trying to understand and get better and better. So before we move on to our session, I would like to introduce Mrs. Sarkar formally. So Mrs. Sarkar serves as principal of La Martina for Girls, Kolkata. It is an internationally renowned school with 183 years of educational excellence since 1836. It has been recognized as one of the best girls' schools in India and in our city. Mrs. Sarkar has been in the field of education for the last 30 years. She is a postgraduate of Calcutta University, graduated from Presidency College, Calcutta, completed B.Ed from St. Xavier's College, Calcutta, with an educational management diploma in administration. She serves in an advisory capacity for several school and college boards. Has been recognized by the British Council for incorporating international dimension in the school curriculum and mentoring other schools in the network, conducts skill development and capacity building workshops for teachers and students, engaged in social work through community projects for women and children by Soroptimist International, member of Bengal Chamber of Commerce, education sector. She likes traveling and reading, recipient of several awards as an inspiring teacher and educator, recipient of the Mother Teresa International Award for Education. Mrs. Sarkar believes that true nation building is possible through education of women and children. So with that, I welcome you once again. So we would really like to know your thoughts and how you feel our teachers, they should go forward in these times, especially because there are a lot of core competencies which are needed for the teachers, and they need to build those same competencies in the children as well. So how to go about it? You've been in this field for very long, and I personally know that you are very skilled in, especially in this sector. So it would be really nice to know your thoughts on this. I will hand over the session to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Sood, for giving me this beautiful opportunity of addressing the teachers of BD Memorial International School, the primary and the pre-primary department. I also thank you for all the warm words of welcome you have read for me. Well, all of that is possible because of my students. They have shaped me, and I think, I owe it also to my childhood teachers who have been a role model for me. And I think that is what made me enter the education arena nearly 30 years ago. And till now, I can say that it is a very, very fulfilling journey for me. And I would like to bring greetings from my school, La Martina for Girls, to all the management of the BD Memorial School, Mr. Gupta, and also the committee, the management committee members, and of course the the teachers, the parents and guardians, and I want to thank you for organizing this wonderful session this evening. Um, you have really taken the core principles of the National Education Policy, which was just released a couple of days back or maybe a week back. And that education policy is a wonderful, wonderful preamble for the education sector of India. While I was going through it, I realized that yes, we have been, many of your schools, and our schools have been doing a lot of the activities that are mentioned in the policy. But I feel that there are many areas that we need to look at in a fresh way. And we need to redesign our curriculum and our pedagogy. The fact that today, on a Saturday evening, teachers have logged into this session, and the school has organized this wonderful seminar, speaks volumes about the outlook and about the vision of the school. I was reading about your vision and mission, and I found that your vision and mission coincides with the broad vision and mission of this policy, National Education Policy. Your mission is to, educate children in the 21st century skills and engage them in the modern way of curriculum. And so I think this is a wonderful opportunity for me, and I'm very grateful for giving me this beautiful time to spend with the teachers. Of course, I will learn from you, and I will only share some of my thoughts, as Ma'am Sood said. It has been a wonderful time of many years of knowing Ma'am Sood. She has been a great friend that, I could keep her request this evening. Teachers, those who are listening, I want to tell you congratulations. Congratulations for transforming yourself to the 21st globalized teacher. I'm sure your school is giving you the flexibility and the ability to conduct digital online teaching. And most of you have been working 24 hours practically. Overnight, you have been preparing lesson plans, you have been looking after your family, though you're not going to school every day, yet your day is full with your children, your family, your schoolwork, your preparations, and indeed the new way of learning or imparting the curriculum, which is the pedagogy that we talk about. So both the curriculum and the pedagogy has now taken a new turn in this COVID situation. We are going through a very, very turbulent times. It is a time, if you are a positive person, it is a time of opportunity. I have seen teachers literally transforming themselves in a week's time from not having touched a smartphone, or let us not say a smartphone, but a laptop, to using all the different platforms and engaging themselves, learning new methodologies, new pedagogies to make their teaching learning effective for their children. And so I say congratulations, hats off to you. You have been a front-line warrior. We talk about doctors, the policemen, the different national leaders, and all those who are out on the field trying to deal with the situation, while, yes, the teachers, school as a whole, as an institution, agent to cope with the teaching, learning of children. Can you imagine? For 5 months now, since end of March, and now nearly we are approaching middle of August, there has been no physical attendance of children in the classrooms. And yet, teaching, learning is going on. How is it possible? It is because of you teachers. It is because of people who are in this education sector, the school management, the parents, the guardians, the other stakeholders who have worked collaboratively to bring the classroom into the home. And so there is a virtual classroom, there is virtual pedagogy and curriculum, and there is a virtual infrastructure which is working to make teaching and learning possible. And so when we look at this new education policy which has been framed, I would like you teachers, sometimes, when we have primary school teachers coming in, sometimes they, are made to feel that, oh, what work are they doing? They're just teaching A, B, C, D, and 1, 2, 3, 4. What good are they doing? Well, you are laying the foundation of learning for every child. And no profession or vocation pursued by any individual would have been possible without your input, without your giving, without your understanding and knowledge. And so you are that much important, have been mentioned very specially in the National Education Policy. I will read out a few areas you need to know, because sometimes we say, oh, education policy, that's for higher school teachers and for the college and for the universities. No. The teacher who teaches foundational classes of literacy and numeracy is as important a person in the structure as the highest order in the line. And if your school has all the different departments, I'm sure there are times when you get together as a teacher body, all the teachers of different classes. I do not know whether you have this practice in your school, but in many schools, especially I can talk about my school, on the day a student is ready to graduate and leave school after class 12, in the farewell program, the pre-primary department teachers play a very important role. They are present to give their blessings because they started the ball rolling. So therefore, you are the beginning. You lay the foundation. And so let us see what the education policy mentions about you. It says that over 85% of the child's learning or development of the brain takes place before 6 years of age. And therefore, the importance of appropriate care and stimulation of the brain in a child's early years for healthy brain development and growth. And therefore, the child should have access to quality early childhood care and education, which you teachers are part of. And this ECCE consists of flexible, multifaceted, multi-level, play-based, activity-based, discovery-based learning of alphabets, languages, numbers, counting, colors, shapes, indoor-outdoor play, puzzles, logical thinking, problem-solving, drawing, painting, visual art, craft, drama, puppetry, music, behavior, courtesy, ethics, personal and public cleanliness, teamwork, cooperation. All the activities that you do in your classroom or henceforth hitherto you have been doing are all mentioned in the policy. The overall aim of ECCE will be to attain the optimal outcomes in domain of physical and motor development, cognitive development, socio-emotional, ethical development, cultural, artistic development, and development of communication of early language, literacy, and numeracy. Today, when we are talking about development of language, literacy, communication, it is mentioned very clearly that these should involve a holistic approach, an integrated approach, inclusive approach, which is enjoyable and engaging. So when we have to make it integrated, holistic, then we have to move away from the rote learning approach, which was till now the practice, to a more problem-solving analytical approach, which is based on critical thinking. And today's topic that we are going to discuss about is critical thinking. So it is based on our education policy to make our curriculum and pedagogy which lends to the development of the skill. And here I would like to mention that how does a teacher develop these skills, or what is critical thinking? Well, it is something that deals with maybe the different facts, the different areas that we come across, how we analyze those facts and frame a judgment, how we the experiences that we go through, how it helps us to develop ourselves and our learning is what helps us to develop critical thinking. And so, when we are thinking about developing these skills in our children, it is important that we also develop it in ourselves as individuals. And so how do we develop it? Because it is a skill we are born with, but we have to nurture it. We have to develop it further. It is there in us, but we have to be more aware of it. So, for example, you say, okay, we are having good monsoon. Okay, we are having good monsoon, good rainfall. That is the observation. Now, a critical mind will then ask why. Why are we having a good monsoon? Or for that matter, we are going through so much of turmoil because of the COVID situation. Why? So the questions that we are asking and the logical aggregation of those points help us to come to an understanding of the situation. So the whys and the formulation of the whys give us the skill of a judgment which we can nurture every day to develop it in ourselves and then incorporate it in our teaching methodology, which is our pedagogy, and help it to realize it in the teaching process with our children. I would like to point out here that in our national education policy, they are telling us it is very important that you learn how to learn. And so when you say how to learn, they are saying that please involve multi-language skills. Sometimes when children come to our classes, the little ones, they only speak in their mother tongue. We should always encourage this, because every child, a toddler, generally within the age of 4 or 5, learns at least 3 languages, minimum 3 languages. The language which is being imparted in the school, the language of the family, the mother tongue, and the languages the child learns from his or her friends. So they pick up minimum 3 languages. So this multilingual approach to learning has been mentioned in our NEP. So it is important that we encourage our children to learn their mother tongue well. Also, to incorporate multidisciplinary teaching and learning. What is multidisciplinary teaching? That we will not straitjacket the streams, okay? Oh, sometimes we say, oh, my left brain order, thinking order, and working order is better than my right. The logical brain of mine is better than my artistic side of my brain. So here we are saying no, if there are 2 sides of the brain, that means the logical as well as the creative both have to work in tandem to have a better understanding of our pedagogy, a better understanding of our curriculum. So the child has to develop all these logical parts of learning, the logical side of learning, as well as the aesthetic or the creative side of learning. And so comes the multidisciplinary approach. So when we say we will have students who are taking up arts, who are good in arts, the liberal arts, the humanities, that does not mean that that particular student cannot also study the sciences and develop scientific attitude or learn the basic science stream subjects. So it is very, very important that we develop both sides, the multidisciplinary approach of learning. And here we are talking about taking into consideration the children, especially the primary and the pre-primary children, being introduced to different types of experiential learning. That means they will learn with their hands, they can work with their, they work with plasticine, they work with sand. So the different types of medium that they have, they learn to work with their hands. So that is the first vocational learning that they're exposed to. When they are learning numeracy, numbers, that's the first time they are getting introduced to the scientific type of subjects. Again, when they are learning the languages, when they are listening, they are learning words, that is introducing them to the liberal arts type of learning. So we are going to bring together both these learnings in a manner that will help them to develop the scientific temper and to help them develop the skills of analyzing things in a logical way. They are also mentioning something very important. And why am I mentioning this for primary or pre-primary teachers? Because your teaching process, your focus will lay the foundation for these children in the higher classes. So if you can expose them to this type of multidisciplinary approach and problem solving skills from the very beginning, then they are able to cope with their understanding of the higher order thinking in the later years. And so, when they have mentioned about 10 days of bagless going to school, 10 days in a year will be spent of going to school without a bag. Of course, for primary children, we don't really have books or anything, so to say. But the idea here is to expose these children on these few days to experiential learning. So they can visit local craftspeople, the artisans, the people who make pottery, the people who weave, people who make different types of paper crafts, and give them an idea of entrepreneurial skills. And that brings me to my next part, which is the skills that help them to develop how to bring in new sectors in their learning. In other words, we are opening them to understanding of not being learning through school, college to become an employee, just to seek a job. We are rather training them to become job givers. We are making them entrepreneurial in their mindset. And so here comes the very important part of this part where they are exposed to internships. You know, the NEP mentions that the children should be exposed in their school to internships with uh, industry, internships with business houses, so that they become more employable. The employability factor comes in. So we are developing entrepreneurial mindsets. How do they do it in pre-primary section? As I've said, help them to do things with their hands. When they're doing things with their hands, they are learning the vocational art of doing things with their own hands. And of course, they are also exposed to, many schools do this. There is community development, initiatives which help them to do community service. So even children can be exposed to community service at an early age. How? The little paper crafts that they do in their classroom or at home for the present can later be sold, and they can be told in the class that what you have made with your hands, the cards maybe they have made, or they have made little, table decorations, whatever they have made, these have been sold so that that money is being used for the less privileged in the society. So they are introduced to inclusiveness as a value in early on in their lives. So these are certain things that are mentioned in the new education policy, the national education policy, which can be started off right from the pre-primary and the early childhood education. When we say these things, we also come to an understanding of teacher development. The fact that we are having this is to develop the teacher, because there is continuous professional development. We learn as long as we live. So this is an approach that will be followed throughout, where the teacher will be a person who is teachable, a teacher who is ready to learn and take his or her abilities to the next level. And so professional teacher development is very, very important. And so you as a teacher will have to develop yourself. I'm sure you have already done that in this COVID situation. You have already transformed yourself in the basic digital literacy skills. Well, there are so many other skills that you need to incorporate as long as you remain a teacher. A teacher never retires. Let me tell you, it is not the salary that makes you a teacher. It is your ability to learn that makes you a teacher. And so you never retire. You are always a teacher. So your constant development is the key to success of your student. And so this little child that is in your hand, which again I state, the NEP says that the teacher is the backbone. The teacher shapes the future of the nation. You are shaping the professionals in your classroom from the early stage. And so the guru, the Vishwa Guru, that is what we are saying, the guru is the key to success, to the development of our nation. And a guru is a person who is constantly giving. You are giving of yourself. You are pouring yourself into the life of your child. And so sometimes many of you are exhausted. And you sometimes say, you know, I hardly have time left for myself, especially in this situation where I'm at home, I'm doing my work, and as a professional, as a teacher, I'm also working again through my home. So it is a constant giving of yourself. But that is the key or the main virtue of a guru. And the role of a teacher in this present generation has changed. A teacher or a guru is no longer transmitting facts. That the Google guru is already there. You know, they have all the facts, and learning is just a click away. You know, the children know many more facts than we do now. They are much more proficient in their digital literacy than us. So we teachers don't need to only transmit facts. Then what is the role of the teacher today? The role of the teacher is to understand the student and help guide the student as a mentor, as a coach. So you have to be the coach and the guide and the mentor. The Google will have all the facts, but the Google will never be a guru. The Google, I repeat, will never be the person who pours his or her life into the child. A guru is one who understands her students or his students. You know, when the child comes to the class, you can look at the face of the child and know that the child is happy or sad today. Am I right? Will the screen understand that? The moment you put the screen on, it will start giving all the facts. It will not stop when the student is feeling tired, when the student is feeling thirsty, when the student is feeling cranky, when the student is wanting to go home to meet his or her parents. The teacher knows when to pause. The teacher understands the student. What pace should be taken for the child? Each child is different. Each child is unique. And a teacher understands the uniqueness of the child. And this is the key role of a teacher. And so a teacher today has a new role. And please understand that we are to use the digital knowledge that is there, the technology that is there at our disposal, to make a holistic approach to our curriculum, to bring forth new things on the table. But it does not mean that it will replace the teacher. So that means the teacher has to reinvent him or herself. You are no longer a bag of facts. You are no longer a head full of facts, but you are a head that guides to develop new facts and knowledge. You are helping your children to develop into a person who will add to the knowledge base. And so you are a role model. Today, Many of you, if I ask you, why are you a teacher? Will you say because it is easy life? Because it is a salary at the end of the month? No. Today you don't know whether you will get a salary at the end of the month or not. So why is it that you have come to this vocation? This is a calling. My fellow teachers, this is not a job. It is a calling. The day you realize that you're shaping the mind of a young child and the soul and the heart of the child, that day you will occupy a crucial position in his or her life, in the life of your learner. Today I am a teacher because I emulate someone who was a role model. And here I think I would love to tell this story which I keep on repeating. You may have heard it in some other platform, in some other place. And this is the story of the former CEO of the Prasar Bharati, the IS officer Johar Sharkar. Mr. Johar Sharkar did his schooling from St. John's School in Krishnanagar. And he says the story, that he went to meet his teacher in Krishnanagar, which is in Nadia district. And by then he had become an officer, and he wanted to pay his respect to his school teacher. By then, the school teacher had become the principal. Many years have passed. And when they meet, the teacher and the taught, they are overwhelmed, they're very happy. And the teacher, who is now the principal, gladly welcomes Johar Sharkar and tells that he is so glad to meet him. And they exchange niceties, and they sit for a while and they catch up on old times. And then suddenly the bell rings. The bell rings, and the principal, who is now the principal and the teacher of Mr. Sharkar, says, "Son, the bell has rung. I have to go. My class begins, so I have to go." And Johar touches the feet of his teacher and says, "Thank you," and says, "I will come back again." He comes back and says that this teacher has not changed. And so respect for him grew further. He had become the principal. He could have easily stayed back and said, "Johar, now I am the principal. I will send another teacher to my class who will look after. And you are such an important person. Let me spend some more time with you." But the teacher does not do that. The principal leaves Johar, says, "I will meet you again." A role model is someone who lives and talks by his or her life example. You have to walk the talk. So if you are a real guru, in your class with your little children, how are you behaving with them? When you tell them, talk softly, do you talk softly to them or do you shout? When you say, come to school on time, are you there in the class on time? Do you start your lessons on time? When you say, show respect, do you do the same thing? A child can understand a lot. We may think that it's just a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, but it is not so. They understand a lot. So you have to be the role model. And then, as you are teaching them, as you're developing your critical thinking skills through the different pedagogical approaches, You find out what is good in the child. You unravel the potential of the child. So you find out the child is good in painting, or the child is good in dancing, the child is good in talking, the child is good in doing sums, the child is good in helping others. So you unravel the potential of the child. So, as a guru, you are giving yourself to understand your child, to be the role model so that you have someone who's following you, and you have been able, through your approach of teaching, to unravel what is the potential inside the child. Before I go further, I think it is time. I have spoken enough, and I would like to give you a few very, clear examples of how you can develop it in your class, how you can develop critical thinking skills in your class. But before I do that, I would stop now and I would ask Ma'am Sood that if she could take it further, and if there are any questions that you would like to ask, I would be happy thus far.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Sarkar. You've really given us very good insights into how, what is exactly needed from a teacher and who is an inspirational teacher. So I'm sure the teachers by now are really feeling inspired. And I do agree with you that it is a passion. Teaching is not a vocation, it is actually a passion. Now, anyone here would like to ask questions? If you would like to do that, please unmute your mic and ask question to Mrs. Sarkar. I think Bipasha, I think you had one question.
Yes, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Good evening,
yes, ma'am. Though this is not related to critical thinking based question, this is absolutely based on the primary level question. Ma'am, do you feel that the current way we are educating children now fully prepares them for the needs of modern day world or modern day times, ma'am?
See, that is exactly what I'm saying. Your approach has to change. See, the way you are teaching them. Now, suppose you have a child who is in your class. This child has to, face a world which is very uncertain. Okay, today they are in a job, tomorrow they don't know whether that job will exist or not. So, are you teaching the child resilient skills? Are you teaching them that it is okay to fail? Are you teaching them it is okay to try and not succeed and then try again? Are you finding ways to tell them that, it is the joy of learning that is more important than marks? So, what is our approach? So, suppose, you are not developing these 21st century skills of collaborative learning, also teamwork. Are you helping children to communicate to one another? Are you developing these skills? So I think we have to change our approach of teaching to prepare them. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. That was really important.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bipasha, for the question. And thank you, Mrs. Sarkar. That was really a good observation, because this is what is important is that we need to change ourselves first, and we need to look at resilience,
Yes.
which is extremely important.
Very, very important.
Yeah. I have a question before I move on to teachers for another question. You spoke about multilingual skills now, they are
Yes.
needed in
Yes.
children, especially the pre-primary and the primary, and because this age is the foundational stage, and so
Hmm.
they should be comfortable in the language that they are speaking in. First thing I think should be communication that you said. But the problem here is that as teachers, as educators, we all understand that this is important, and now the NEP has also laid down this guideline. So, even before that, when we were doing it before this came into the policy, if we tried to do this, we have parents who are always wanting children to only learn English because they feel mother tongue is something which they learn in the house, but in school they should only be concentrating on English, and somehow it becomes a trend then that teachers also feel that we need to concentrate only on English. So how do you think we can bring this
See,
across to parents?
Ma'am, so this will not change overnight. Okay, because you cannot blame the parents. They are doing this because they have seen that everywhere they need the language. But mind you, we are looking at an educational policy which is saying that in our country we will allow foreign universities to come and they will open their operations here, and maybe we don't know they are going to give the know-how as how we can also through our mother tongues can reach that particular area. Now suppose we are talking about research in a particular area, and the university is giving us the know-how how to go about it. So even if the child is not learning English but has an ability to learn in his or her language, then I am sure they will have the exposure to talk about their research in their own language in that higher educational institution which will be set up, and that will give them an exposure to the world. Hitherto, all our research projects had to be taken abroad to be read or to be discussed in a foreign language. But here now we are saying that in our own language we will allow this to happen. So we will see how it is being implemented, but the focus is surely there on the local languages.
Yeah. So thank you so much. This was very well explained. So I'm sure we will wait to see first at the implementation and then how things unfold.
Yeah, it's the implementation, how it's going to happen.
Absolutely. Anyone else here who would like to ask Mrs. Sarkar? Please come out with your questions.
Yes, ma'am. I would like to ask a question. My name is Mrs. Nitya Rajiv.
Yes.
Nice to meet you. Yes,
You
Nitya.
can turn your video.
Yeah, ma'am.
Let's have a look at your lovely face.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Sure. Ma'am, I just want to know, like I teach mathematics. So how
Yes.
can I develop the critical thinking of a child who is suffering from dyslexia or dyscalculia?
See, the approach now is not giving them sums or operational methods given and you just teach them how to do it. The approach, see, understand, we are talking about approach. I am not a special needs teacher who can tell you how to go about teaching a child who's having dyslexia or dyscalculia. What I'm trying to tell you is that your approach has to be different now. Suppose, simple, let's take, you just don't write 2 plus 2 and ask the child to add. Rather, maybe you take 2 dice, throw it, and the numbers that come up. Tell the child what are the 2 numbers that have come up. Can you add them? So you are teaching addition. Or you can say, which is the higher number? Which is the greater number? Can you subtract from that the other number? Or which is a number greater than that which is already there on the dice? So Your approach has to be different. So critical thinking skills can be developed in numeracy by following a method which helps them to think rather than just teaching them the method. Open them to more situations, and then suppose, say, you have a window in your classroom or in your home, and they are learning to do perimeter or area. Don't just give them two numbers and say, calculate the perimeter. Rather, tell them, can you find out the perimeter of the window? So let them do the length and the breadth, then write down. So they are getting an idea of how to come to numbers and how to assimilate them. Nitya ji.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So anyone else for any other question, or should we move on?
Good evening,
think-
ma'am.
Yes.
Nakshi here. I have a
Good
question to
evening.
ask.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ma'am, you gave a very clear explanation about the national education for the policy. That's talking about so many new ways and pedagogical methods.
A little louder, ma'am. A little louder.
And you can switch on your video also.
Yeah, just a moment. Just a moment.
Nakshi, your mic has been muted. Yeah, fine.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes.
I can hear you now. Yes, a little loudly if you speak that way.
Yes, I will try, ma'am. Yeah, what I was actually saying is that, that you gave a very clear guidelines about the national education for policy, and also what are the new demands from the teacher with regard to the changing pedagogical methods. Okay, so it's really very interesting. But my question is that, ma'am, that when the school starts, working at the normal, this thing flow, and when we start taking our regular classes, at that time there's always a mad rush for finishing the syllabus.
Good. Glad
Yes.
we're coming to that. Yes, tell me.
So this is one practical problem that we teachers always have to face, because in spite of all these seminars or the workshops that we attend, we really feel very inspired by the new approaches that is being discussed, and we would really love to actually implement it in our classes. In fact, thanks to the online medium, that it is giving us some room for trying out these approaches, because when we talk other than just the academics and we try out various other activities, the children do really enjoy, and they enjoy the classes. But then again, when it comes to the classroom teaching, then it's a different scenario, and there's always a mad rush to finish the syllabus. So how do we actually balance both? So now, with the changing pedagogical methods, will it be possible for us to make the balancing act really work out perfectly well?
See, ma'am, you have to understand the educational policy has been framed, and they are slowly working towards it. The colleges and the universities are slowly going to move from their focus of marks to understanding the skills that the child or the student has developed. And they are now not looking at IQ, they are looking at EQ. Not only intelligent quotient, which helps the child to get that many marks, but they are also looking at capabilities that the student or the learner has because of the EQ. How do you measure EQ? You are saying in a class, when we go back to the normal situation, there will be a mad rush to complete syllabus. Here, let me point out, the policy is saying that they have reduced the syllabus. All right, they have mentioned it and they have done it. They have reduced the syllabus so that there is no mad rush to complete it. Rather, you focus on that areas where it helps the child to develop concept, helps the child to do problem solving. So now the onus is on the teacher. The onus is on the school. We have the board, or let us say the guidelines have been given. Will the school follow it? Will the teachers follow it? Simple. In your school, I'm sure you're giving many activities to the child. Are you only teaching ABCD? Are you only teaching how to do, calculations and things like that? Or are you doing something more than that? Do you allow the child to have activities like celebrating different festivals? Every school does that. But through the celebration of festivals, what messages are you giving? You are trying to inculcate a lot of values and abilities in the child, which goes beyond marks. So the balance that you're talking about, the universities are now going to concentrate on what activities the student has gone through, what leadership skills that the student has. Can the student work collaboratively with other learners and bring or build knowledge bank? The college or the university is going to focus on that. So it is not going to focus on the marks. And I have seen personally now, universities are not only taking the top graders or the one who's got a 99. They have also taken a student who is having a few grades or few points less than that the other child. Why? Because they have found that problem solving skills are the key to survival in this VUCA world. We know you may have heard of a VUCA world, all right? A world which is volatile, unpredictable, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, which we are going through. So are we training our children to be resilient? Are we telling them it is okay? Today if you don't have this particular job, will you be able to transfer your skills to another side? Today, hospitality industry suffered. So the restaurants came to a close. Now, being a CEO of maybe 10 restaurants, okay, you were having a good business. Now it came to a stop. What will you do? Did your school teach you skills to quickly adapt, to change to the situation and look into other skills that you have or you have developed? Do you have a good guiding capability? Can you do career development? So instead of now opening a restaurant, you will have a counseling industry. Or if you are a good coach, you're a good communicator, you could do something else. So multidisciplinary learning is what a good school and a good teacher will impart. Have I answered your question?
Yes, very
ma'am.
right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Meenakshi. So, okay, ma'am, again, Mrs. Sarkar, we hand over the session to you.
Okay.
Please
I will
carry on.
just give a very, just a few examples of how, in our school, I have seen teachers, developing critical thinking skills. They sometimes, which you must be doing in your school also, they show a picture, maybe of children playing in the beach. And then they say, what is wrong in the picture? And so the children look at the picture, so they are developing observation skills. Then they are thinking, what is normal? What is generally done at a beach? Why do we go to a beach? So that they have an idea. Okay, we go to swim, we go to play. So is all that happening? And then what kind of clothes do you wear when you go to the beach? What activities are happening? And they look at it very clearly and they find that, yes, somebody is swimming, but somebody is building a sand castle wearing woolen clothes. Somebody is swimming who's not a human being, it's a horse. What I'm trying to say, if you could see that picture, you will understand how the child is made to think. So, you could use picture comprehensions to develop certain skills like this. Or maybe, we generally do that and we enjoy doing it even in our adult stage. You have a set of, rows of maybe, same type of fruits. And then you say, you color only those which are different. So you have maybe in a row 2 mangoes and 1 apple. So the child will only color the one which is different. So these are different ways of trying to make the child think. Think and then do it. We are not saying color the mango. Or we are not saying color the apple. We are saying color the fruit which is different in the row. So again, the child is solving a problem, is thinking and then putting it into practice. Think again of those exercises which we do of joining dots. There is a pattern given and the child has to replicate that same pattern. So the child will look at the picture given by the teacher and look at how many dots have been joined, in which way it has been joined, which direction it has been going, and will try and replicate that. So in other terms, the child is looking at direction, the child is counting, the child is looking at sizes. So many different knowledges are being used to solve the problem. Or you could ask some farm riddles. Farm riddles we generally ask, name an animal which gives milk, which has 4 legs, okay, has horns, has hooves, but is not a cow. Simple, primary children. And so they will think and they will think of other farm animals which gives them milk. So maybe they'll come up with goat. Some may come up with, sheep. We don't know. So depending on their exposure, please ask children to look at picture storybooks. Ask them to solve riddles, age appropriate, and help them to go through certain educational videos which inculcate this kind of thinking. So these are some of the different ways where, you can form your questions intelligently. So I always say that a good teacher is as good as his or her question paper. If you look at the question paper of a teacher, you can gauge the proficiency of the teacher, whether those fine skills are being nurtured in the child or not. The way you question the child, the way you frame your question paper in the formative stage is very, very important. And this will continue what you are laying the foundation, the cornerstone that you are laying, the higher classes will build on that. So it is very important that you develop the skills at this age from 0 to 3 and 3 to 5. This age is very, very important. So please form your question paper very intelligent.
Mrs. Sarkar, we also have a lot of teachers here who are teaching classes 3, 4, and 5. So if some light can be thrown upon activities.
See, the idea is, give them more exposure for hands-on. Okay, make them do crafts, make them do things. Now, suppose you are teaching them bill sums. Okay. Now, generally, what we would do is take them today in the COVID situation when we reopen. I don't know how much it will be possible for you to take them to the next door store that is there, ask them to bring a 50 rupees and then make them buy stuff and then, come and add and, we do the bill sums. Rather, you can transform your classroom. It can be a real maker shala classroom. That means what you are doing, it is a design classroom where you have a shop So in your shop, you can divide your class in a manner where one corner you can open a little counter where you can, as if you are selling items, and let the children come with their bags. They will buy 2 pencils, one eraser, or a ruler and a sharpener, and then they will add up how much they have to pay and then pay you the money, a paper note. So, in other words, you can redesign your classroom. You will have to find ways. There are so many sites which, if you open, you can find ways of redesigning your classroom to involve analytical thinking, curriculum, ways of teaching in the class. So maybe you could go through those and develop that such kind of a classroom.
Thank you. Thank you. So that was really good.
So yes, so if any more questions are there, I would like to answer. I think it's already time, and I think Saturday evening we need to release them
We
also.
really had a nice inspirational talk, and I'm sure teachers are they have got very good inputs, and especially with the NEP guidelines that you have stated. And we do feel that yes, these guidelines were much needed, and I personally think that all the now that this world we are coming to, this is going to be a very different world, and we are going using the word new normal. So in this situation also, and the new world that is coming up, these kind of skills will be needed. And in order to cope with the situations further, we need to build up on our critical thinking and problem solving skills. And you very rightly said that with the new universities, foreign universities that are going to be coming in, and also the universities here or the colleges here, they are looking more at the problem solving skills in children rather than just grades and marks. So from the foundation stages, from the pre-primary and the primary stages, we need to work on children, and we need to build in those skills which will help them to cope with the modern world, or cope with the future, and help them to be proficient in whatever they do, and build up on all the needed skills. And for that, teachers need to build their skills. And you very rightly said that professional development is very important at all points of time. We need to keep developing. I think we are learners life. So thank you, Mrs. Sarkar. Thank you so much for being here with us and giving us this wonderful talk. And, I'm sure this will help us to move on further and build up on all the much needed skills. Thank you, teachers, for joining. And
thank you very much. Thank you, Ma'am Sood. And
the school reopens. We would really love to have you come over to the school.
Yes, I would love to see it. And I want to give my best wishes to every teacher. Teacher, you are the backbone. Your children will learn happiness if you smile every day. Your child will have hope, and you will build this ability to hope in very difficult circumstances if you teach them how to hope in a difficult day. So please have your faith and always build hope in your children. No matter what the ability of the child is unique and has been made in the image of God. That is what we believe. And so you have this very sacred vocation of shaping that child. So I wish you the very best, and may you have a very fulfilling journey. And let nobody tell you that you are a primary or a pre-primary teacher who is of no consequence, because you are the one who lays the foundation for the senior teacher to build on. So hats off to you. for the kind of work that you do in every child. God bless you. And thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.